Hello everyone, it is Preethi from Vishnu IS. Today we are going to explain the very important topic of UPSC, which is called one of the favorite topic of UPSC too, that is inflation. That is inflation. That is, in this topic I am going to explain you what is inflation and types of inflation and how to measure inflation, what are all the reasons for the inflation, and if inflation happens, what it will affect the economy of the country, and how the government is tackling the effect of inflation. Then these three topics, that is what types and how to measure inflation, they are very important from the perspective of the prelims, and the reasons, the effects and the government measures are very important from the point of view of mains. So let me explain you what inflation means. Inflation means the persistent rise in the price of a goods and services, average price. So when the average price of a good increases over a period of time, the purchasing power of a money will get declined. That is, for example, in 2010, with 100 rupees, we are able to buy both bread and butter. But with the same amount, in 2020, we are unable to buy both. We are able to buy only one product. It means the purchasing power of a money has declined over a period of time. This is one of the effect of inflation too. That's why the inflation targeting of a government is very important for both macroeconomic stability and for ensuring the poor people, the poorest of poor people can access the basic necessities of life. Then comes the types of inflation. In types, there are so many types of inflation too. Let me explain to you what are all the types, the main types of inflation. That is creeping inflation, when it 3%, from 0 to 3%, creeping inflation, walking inflation, galloping inflation, hyperinflation. Not all types of inflations are bad for the economy. There are inflations which are good for the economy. Let me explain to you what that good inflation to the economy is. That is creeping inflation. Creeping inflation is good for the economy because if average price of a good increases, it will brings profit to the producer, revenue for the government, profit for the investors too, and money circulation get increased in the economy. So this will in turn increases the investment. This investment will bring employment. This increased employment will bring income. The personal income of a consumer will get increased. They are able to command more demand in the economy. This increase in the demand, what will happen? Will increase the revenue of the government. That is, GDP will get increased. So this inflation, 0 to 3% of inflation is good for the economy. So then comes walking inflation. Walking inflation means it acts as an alarm for the government to take the measures to control the inflation. It will be like 5%, then it will increase to 10%, that will become galloping inflation. Then also if the government did not take any stimulus control in the economy, it will become hyperinflation. That is, if these are the percentage in terms of year per annum, this will like 20 to 30% increase in the inflation per month. This situation we have seen during the time of World War II and World War I too. That's why this hyperinflation is very bad for the economy. The government in terms of economy will often collapse because of hyperinflation too. Then comes another type of inflation that is mostly asked in the exam, that is deflation. Deflation, then open inflation. Here one topic is suppressed inflation. Then comes headline inflation and core inflation. Why I have written in the bunch means they are related to each other. Deflation means it is opposite to the inflation, that is persistent decrease in the price of a goods and services over a period of time. That will, if it is good, it is in the range, it is good, but if it increases in the behind the level of control, it will create a recession. Recession means the gloomy condition of the economy, that is investment will get reduced, savings rate of the consumers will get reduced. So, the deflation also needs the government measures to tackle it. Then comes open inflation and suppressed inflation. When inflation happens, the government will take some measures. Then what are all the types of measures like government takes? It will reduce the tax rate or increase the tax rate. RBI, it will increase the interest rate or decrease the interest rate. When these interest rates are decreased or increased, that is called suppressed inflation. The government is trying to suppress the inflation rate. And then if it does not control the inflation or does not suppress the inflation, it will become open inflation. That is the difference between open inflation and suppressed inflation. Then headline inflation and core inflation. These two inflations are very important because they are always in the news, because headline inflation means this is the inflation the consumers we face in day-to-day experience, in day-to-day life. That is, headline inflation means increase the price of a goods for all the goods and services without differentiating anything. But core inflation means it's a measurement of basic inflation, that is upon reducing the price of volatile compounds, like what are all the volatile compounds, that is food prices, fuel prices. When these type of inflation, when these type of products contributing to the inflations are reduced, then it will become core inflation. So, core inflation is very helpful because it will reduce the seasonality effect from the calculation of inflation. So, these are all the main types of inflation we get to study in the inflation topics. Then comes what are all the reasons. Reasons are very important because if we know the reasons, then only the government can control the inflation type, inflations in the economy. That is, reasons can be demand pull, cost push, structural inflation, then other factors. First reason is demand pull inflation. When the people in the country are having more income, they were able to pay more price for the same commodity. That is, increase in the demand will pull the cost of a commodity, that is, will pull the cost of a commodity, that is, inflation caused due to the increase in the demand, increase in the capacity of the consumers to have more, to pay more price to get the product. Then cost push inflation. This is due to supply shocks will happen. That is, cost push means, for example, drought happened in a region. That is, due to drought, the supply of a commodity got reduced. So, these reduced supply will command high prices in the economy. That is, increase the inflation of a commodity, the particular commodity. That is, cost is pushing the inflation. Then comes structural inflation. That is, structural inflation because of structural deficiency in the economy. For example, infrastructure. If it takes infrastructure as a structure of economy, then due to lack of infrastructure, the commodities will not distribute equally in all the regions. That will cause inflation in some regions where the products will not reach in timely manner. So, this type of inflation is called structural inflation. Because of structural deficiency in the economy, with this type of inflation will happen. Then other factors can be like hoarding. Hoarding means the people intentionally, wantedly keep the commodity in one storeroom, and when the scarcity of the goods will come, they will take the advantage of that situation and artificially makes the increase in the price of a goods. So, inflation will created artificially in the economy. Then comes price cartelization. Price cartelization means few of the producers will combine together and they will command high prices, and they will command same prices. For example, if tomato is 20 rupees, due to cartelization they will tell like below 30 rupees we won't sell the commodity. So cartelization will also increase the inflation of a commodity. So these are the reasons, and many other reasons. For example, imported inflation. Imported inflation means, this is a very common term we see in the newspaper, that is imported inflation. Because of high increase in the price of a oil, the inflation got increased. Because of Russia-Ukraine war, the inflation got increased. So these are all the inflation which imported from the foreign land, not because of domestic reasons as such. So these are all the main reasons for inflation. Then comes impact of inflation. What will happen when the inflation happen in the economy? That is, for example, I will tell you one trick. In economics, to write any impacts, we can use one formula, that is consumer, investors, government plus import and export. This is actually well known formula in economics. For any investment for the economy, will denote from this formula. So how we can explain the impact of inflation from this means, this is consumer. Okay, now this consumer is a heterogeneous group, means these consumers can be a fixed income groups, can be a debtor, can be a creditor. So many people comes under this consumer group. So the impact of inflation on the consumer means, the consumer will oftenly hurted by the inflation. Means when increase in the price of a goods happen in the economy, the purchasing power of the people get reduced, their saving get reduced. When the savings get reduced, let me write here, when savings get reduced, their investment will get reduced, they will face difficulty in buying the products. So the consumers will get affected by the inflation in bad way. Then comes investors. Why investors will get affected by this means, investors will get borrowing from RBI. RBI will also do some measures to control the inflation too, because this is the agency to control or to target the inflation in the country. So RBI, what will do RBI means, it will increase the interest rate. Why? Because to reduce the money supply in the economy. We already saw this in demand pull inflation, means because of having more money, they are demanding more products. So this money supply in the economy has to be reduced. So they reduce the money supply because of these instruments like monetary, due to monetary policy. One of the tool in monetary policy is increase in the interest rate. When increase in interest rate happen, what will happen means, this increase in the interest rate will make borrowing from the bank difficulty or costly. So less borrowing, less investment will happen. Then another measure can be increases the rate of CRR. When CRR get increased, what will happen? Banks will not have the adequate money to lend to the investors or any borrowers in the economy. So these type of instruments will make the investors to suffer during the time of inflation. Then comes the government. How government will get affected? Because inflation happen, the poorest of the poor people in the country can't afford the necessities. So government has to subsidize the product. Government has to produce, like for example, generic medicines at free of cost or at low price. So government has to spend its amount to reduce the impact of inflation on the consumers. So government will suffer from fiscal deficit in the economy. So when government suffer from fiscal deficits, what will happen? The government capacity to invest in capital investment will get reduced. Infrastructure in the country will get reduced. So inflation will makes the long term effect on the government to reduce its capacity to invest in the economy. Then comes export and import. Export, I will tell you, let me erase. Export will affected in two ways. That is, it will increases the export also, it will decreases the export also. Let me explain to how it will increase, how it will decrease. Means when the inflation is high, the producer think that because of during inflation one more phenomena happen, that is rupee depreciation. Means the purchasing power of our currency will get reduced in front of the foreign currency. So for example, here now 80 rupees Indian rupee will buy $1. So when we import the goods, they will pay us in dollars. So we can convert that into a rupee so that we will get more profit in the domestic market. Then it will reduce export also. How means it will reduce export in terms of, because producer also think that when we are commanding more price in the domestic market itself, why we have to sell our goods in the foreign land. So they will also increases the export too. So these are all the many impacts the inflation makes. Inflation tends to have inflation will create in the economy, so that the people suffers. So then comes the government measures. The government has to control. It's a government responsibility to reduce the inflation in the economy, so that the government will take wherever we will make the point of fiscal policy. Just think of two things in mind, that is tax and expenditure. How the government will get the money and how it will spend the money. So it will change the fiscal policy of the government, that is it will decreases the indirect tax, that is the taxes on the products. It will make the products cheaper by decreasing the indirect taxes. And expenditure, it will expend on infrastructures, it will give subsidy on the products. So by this way the government will tries to reduce the effect of inflation. Then comes RBI. What RBI will do, it will take monetary policy. It's the responsibility of RBI to reduce the inflation in the country. So what RBI will do, it will increase the CRR, as I already told you, and it will increase the interest rate. That's how the government together with the RBI tries to reduce the inflation effects on the people of the country. So these topics are very important from the point of view of exam. So inflation, I covered what is inflation, types of inflation, measures to inflation, how to measure the inflation, then reason for inflation, effects and government policies. So these inflation topics, as it is very important from the point of view of examination, try to learn all these things. So here the inflation topics comes to an end. Thank you.